Start recording. All right, so welcome to another virtual class presentation. And this is on communication. And obviously, this is under cluster 1, under communicating with influence. So in the cluster, you will be requested to conduct a negotiation meeting. So it's quite important that you get some training at improving your negotiation or persuasion skills. So I want you to start now thinking about certain workplace activities whereby you would be asked or required to conduct some negotiation. Now, I'm not talking about just business deals and things that pertain to money. We're talking about the most simplest of things even, negotiating on who takes what lunch break is still some form of negotiation, right? In terms of rostering, in terms of contracts, with suppliers, for example, in terms of even appointments, start negotiating with what you can offer, what they would need, especially with customers. So there are so many ways of negotiating. And to define it, negotiation means that you have an outcome that you would like to obtain, and also the other person will also have some sort of goal or objective, and you're trying to agree on what is the best way moving forward. So you may not have 100% opposite view of things, but some differences are there, okay? So you would need to come into an agreement whereby both parties are getting the best outcome they can on the situation, okay? So I'd like to define that at the beginning. So when you're actually doing some negotiation, there are so many elements that you'd have to consider. It's not about just knowing what you want and asking them what they want. There is a strategy and a process that goes with it. Last week, I spoke about the basics of communication, and I just slightly touched on the SCARF method. Now, the SCARF method is a very important tool and technique that can be used in terms of knowing what the other party's motivation is. So what will motivate them to make a decision or to see how you perceive things, okay? So they can understand your side very quickly, and if being able to handle the meeting more efficiently instead of making mistakes along the way, the last thing you would want to do is to offend someone or not be able to create enough connection, not to be able to establish that trust or credibility and a connection while you're doing your negotiations, okay? Because obviously you're not going to get the best outcome. And worst case scenario is that we would then end up having some form of conflict, okay? So with Communications 101, I've got Rena right now who's joined me, but I'll just touch on this quickly, okay? I know you may have missed the first video, the first part of this, but just so when you look at communications, which is a vital part of being able to negotiate effectively, is that we have to be very clear about the basic principles of communication. We know that it's about sending a message and getting a message. It's also about receiving a message and also giving your response, okay? So there's always someone who's initiating the message, and there's someone receiving it and then reacting, okay? Now, when we talk about message, this is not just about verbal messages. These could also be non-verbal messages, okay? So body language is a big initiator for conversation, okay? And sometimes we feel that we need that verbally expressed to confirm that we actually got that message. But to be honest with you, majority of what we do kind of suss out what's in front of us first, and then the verbal comes in as a validation, okay? So just bear that in mind, because when you are negotiating, you don't wait just for a verbal response. You're going to be very sensitive about emotional cues that are being expressed through body language. And that is very powerful, right? So when you're able to get the message way before it's expressed in words, that is a very powerful skill for you to use to let the person know that you absolutely understand them, because your quick response to it tells them, oh my God, this person gets me. And as well as the body communications or language is a more accurate reflection of a person's thoughts, because words usually are very conscious. It's a conscious way of communicating most of the time, right? Unless, of course, you're very upset and you're emotionally overwhelmed. But the body language tells you exactly, or gives you a very, very good idea how the person is feeling, right? And to be able to respond to that and have time to think about what your response would be is a huge, it will make a huge difference. Because then if you're only waiting for what you hear, sometimes we kind of say things impulsively and react and respond to it without having that blip of extra time to think about what you'd have to say to respond to that will actually amount to effective communication and negotiations. Okay, because when we do go through negotiations, people have that certain wall and defense mechanism because they're trying to defend their right to obtain the best outcome for themselves. Okay, so they've got that that wall, and the only way for them to protect that wall is to let you know that these are my boundaries. All right, and sometimes they'll be feeding things before they say it, and by the time you get the words and you hear the words, they may have filtered what they've already had to say. Okay. And when you respond to them, they're also not responding only through the words that you're saying, they're also looking at your body language as well. So it's more complicated, but it's not impossible to figure out and learn these skills. Okay. Now, let me skip on that. So I have mentioned to you that there it's not just verbal communications, but there are other ways of being able to do that. And have a look at the percentage of how much our brain registers and interprets messages. Okay. Words are only 7% in terms of its value. And the body language is absolutely 55%. Okay. And of course, the vocal elements, which pertains to tone and pitch and speed, is 38%. Okay, so you can say something, two people can say something which is the same in terms of words, but if their pitches are different or their tone is different, then the message that we get from each party would be different. Okay, right. So the basics, there are things that we need to keep on remembering when we're doing communications, and it's regardless of whatever situation that we're in, whether it be a negotiation meeting, whether it be a one-to-one talk with someone, when we are having a group meeting, so these are just really the basics. So if you look at this list and there's something there that you feel you need to work on, that will become priority, because you have to have a very good foundation on your communication skills before you could expect yourself to work on your skill on persuasion and negotiation, because that is absolutely level up. Okay, so negotiation skills have communication skills as a sub skill to it. Okay, so it's like a prerequisite before you can negotiate. You have to have very good communication skills, right? It says things about the words that you're going to use. Also ensure that you know your facts right. It's not about always talking about your perception or your opinion, because that is your own perception. It's not about pushing people too much about your opinion of things, but you need to also know what the facts are, because when the facts are being presented, it builds credibility and it's a common ground for both parties to work on, and it's very concrete. If you start talking about your own opinion and perception, then it becomes ambiguous, and then you wouldn't know where boundaries are going to lie. And people are very they have this defensive approach when it comes to opinions and perception. So they have this thing that they judge whether it's right or wrong immediately, whereas something that's presented as a fact, they don't have the time, they don't have the privilege to do that. So negotiations can go really quickly. All right, so how do we improve on our persuasion and negotiation skills? These are the tips. First, work on your emotional intelligence. If you do not have sufficient of it, okay, then there are so many errors that you can make, such as not being able to get a good outcome in negotiations, and conflict with other people, conflict with yourself, even your ability to trust yourself. So just a reminder, emotional intelligence work on 4 elements, okay? So for you to be emotionally intelligent, you have to have very good self-awareness. You have to have the ability to regulate your emotions. You have the ability to spot the difference between yourself and others. And that social awareness is heightened. You are not just living in a bubble, but you're able to look at people, observe them in a very, not non-judgmental, but in a more open way, because if people are different, so you look at their perception and you have the ability to also understand how they perceive things, and an objective view of how people are different. When I say objective, meaning you don't personalize when a person is different to you. Okay, you kind of go, okay, he's different to me, but what made him different? And you respect that. Okay, so social awareness brings about respect for diversity, and that's the main thing there. You need to respect how people are different. Now, when you are so aware about how people are different, you then have the ability to use that knowledge and adjust how you deal with other people. And this is where we go to the 4th element of emotional intelligence. This is then about maintaining and building relationships. Okay, so building and maintaining relationships, this is where negotiation comes in. So that's on the 4th quadrant. So you would then, it's like going to different steps. There are 4 levels. Okay, work on your own self-awareness, regulating your own emotions. Then you then have the social awareness, and then you're able to use all that you know to be able to manage and build good relationships. Okay, but today we are going to discuss about one technique, and it's called the SCARF model. I'll tell you all about it, and you need then to learn more about certain tools and techniques that are being used, not just in the workplace, but in any given situation. Okay, let me talk to you about SCARF now. So SCARF was done and created by David Rock. It is about collaborating with and influencing others. So he used this, and this has been practiced for a long, long time by so many different people. And because we have this desire to be able to motivate others to see our perception and make decisions, So with that level of desire, David Rock responded to that and created this model, and it's been tried and tested. I've tried and tested it for years, and it absolutely works. Okay, I tried it on my customers. It helped me close sales, a lot of sales, when I was still in the financial industry, and it also helped me create really strong bonds with my team, okay, as their manager. All right, so what does SCARF stand for? SCARF has 5 key domains. So the idea here is that each person has a priority list on what absolutely motivates them. And this is linked to what they value or what is important to them. Okay, so each person is very different. And why we know that? Because it all depends on their experiences, whether they be good or traumatic. And also it depends on their personalities, which is obviously created by genes and biology. It's created by experiences, environment, culture, education, so on and so forth. Okay, so you cannot insist on someone to say that this should be more important to you. That's why when you kind of have that message and we try to deliver that message, when you try to tell them that this should be more important, people find that very offensive. Okay, so be very careful with that. Now that is where we establish respect. It took them ages and years of life in this earth to put this in their subconscious minds and value the following things. Okay, and every person has different, like a priority list. So this could be on top of my list, that could be at the bottom of my list. The key thing here is for you to be able to spot the first three, the first or the top three scarf of that person. Okay, and obviously the most important thing is to know what is really on the top. Okay, because this is when you try to negotiate, you know what you will say to that person that will obviously attract their attention, because it tells them that, hey, that is what I value. Now, this is subconscious, but you creating that type of message should be more on a very conscious level, because you're now studying how you're going to, you're studying your strategy. Okay, so say for example, someone who finds their status, which is the S on scarf, to be extremely important. These are the people that are very conscious about how people perceive them and how much respect they get, okay, and recognition in society. Okay, so these people really love to feel special. Okay, and these are the people who value their worth a lot. So that's status. So some people do put that on the top of their list. Okay. Secondly, the people who are under the C or the scarf. Okay, people who value clarity, detail, information, facts. The ones who absolutely get super anxious when things are ambiguous, you know, and when they don't know where things are heading. So they're very much into security of things. So A for scarf or autonomy, okay, is about the sense of control over events that surround them, including their independence. So these are the people who do not want to be controlled, who love the freedom of being able to make decisions for themselves. Okay, by the way, that's my number one. And next we have relatedness. These people who absolutely value relationships, okay, how safe they feel with others. Okay, so it's not just about how people perceive them, because status, it's about how people perceive me, whether it be I'm safe with them or not. I don't really care, for as long as I'm a little bit on top of them or the same level, if I have a lot of respect for this group of people. But the people who are more onto the relatedness motivational element, or let's say scarf, okay, is more concerned about keeping the relationships, okay, having a positive impression with people. And we've got people who put fairness as the top of their list. These are the ones who are very conscious about what's fair, what's not fair, conscious about, you know, what's bad and what's good, conscious about, you know, the lateral way of being dealt with. Okay, so what's common and what's and how people are being affected by decisions, including themselves. So into legislation, into procedures, they question things a lot about how fair things are. So I want you to try to think about yourself. And I've just mentioned the 5. Rena, are you still with me? I hope you are. If you could, type down what you think your scarf is. Hey, what do you think is your scarf? What's the number 1 for you? Would it be what do you value the most? And here's another question. Here's another tip. Think about something like a problem that you've just recently had, okay, that really, really mattered to you, that you probably spent days or weeks thinking about. What did it threaten? Or why did it make you anxious? So what value within that scarf relates to what that problem presented to you? Think about it. What was at threat? And that will give you a clue. Okay, did it threaten your sense of, there you go. See, so fairness. Now, that's just one occasion, right? But there are ways of spotting what this person really, really values depending on what they say and how they behave. Okay, and I'm going to go into every single one of them. As I've mentioned, I'd like to share mine, Rena. It's autonomy. Absolutely autonomy. Okay, for me. See, we're different. All right. Why do we use scarf? It minimizes threat and maximizes the reward. So when you know what a person values more, then you are careful at not triggering an emotional response to that, or the stress factor. So when you are aware of that and you're conscious of that and how you deal with the other people, then, you would be less a threat and more a friend or somebody who is connected with them, and you've built that good rapport. And for customers, absolutely the experience behind that, because you now have shown that personal touch and the ability to meet the underlying needs of a customer, which normally they don't say to you. Okay, they say those basic needs, but they don't actually say what their underlying needs is. Even with staff, even with their team and our colleagues, they don't really tell you a lot about what they really value. I mean, it's a very weird conversation to have, like, what are your values? You can't ask people like that, just so and so, but it's the underlying expectations of a person, of themselves and the society that they live in, and keeps people engaged because say, oh, you speak my language, then you have my attention, right? And meeting the needs. So, all right, so here we go. The S's, okay? So think about somebody who always uses the following words. I have been here, or a staff member or customer for years. I know this person, and they start dropping names. I don't think I should have to wait. Okay, who else is here? Okay, so these are the things that they normally say. Now, they talk a lot about themselves. They talk a lot about who's who. They talk about who they know. They mention about their position or status a lot, not just once, and they voluntarily give that information without being asked. They ask to receive special favors and attention, okay? And can be very formal and authoritative in their manner of speaking, okay? And sometimes it very condescending as well, okay? So that's like different signs that you need to spot. Now, remember, when you are speaking with somebody and you've been doing that like on a daily basis, it's very easy for you to spot these things. But what if you have to negotiate with somebody that you've just met in 2 meetings or 1 meeting, or not met them at all? How do you spot these things? Okay, so you can obviously see how they email, the tone of their email, and then have a chat with them That's the reason why it's always a bad idea to get into a negotiation meeting without having that first chat. At least spend some time to listen to how they're delivering their messages to you, because that's when you start knowing, okay, what is the scarf of this person? Because when I'm going to negotiate with them, I'm going to let him see the benefits that would relate to what he values. Okay. And there are certain responses that you can say to that status person, okay, to get their attention. Okay, so how do you respond to that? By saying that they are important or acknowledging that, always mentioning and welcoming, embracing their presence, and even like say, I know you love this type of coffee and I took the time out to get it for you. Here it is. You've put yourself in a very good position to start your negotiation meeting. Let them feel special, okay? For as long as you're also being honest, right? And remember always to use their name. They do find that very important. They don't want to be just like everyone else. And always warmly acknowledge their presence. Verbally say how you appreciate their presence, make them feel important, keep conversations private and out of earshot from others, especially when you are challenging certain ideas that they say. Okay, be concise, don't beat around the bush. Okay, they are very highly sensitive to icing on the cake. They don't like icing. Okay, they just want it said to them the way it is. And of course, compliment them. So make sure you're also truthful about your compliments. Okay. Now, certainty. Who are the ones who are very much into certainty? This is what you're going to hear from them. Please explain what exactly, why, where can I find more information? I would like some time to think about it. Wait, so can you be more specific? Well, what if? What happens if? Do you have any reading material for this? Can I look this up somewhere? Who do we call for support? And they need more information. They prefer a step-by-step approach. They need time to think. They do not want to be rushed. They have done their research before, they've really dug into all the facts, figures, and whatnot. Use technical language and ask a lot of questions. Okay. Favorable responses. Would you like to obtain more information? Here is more information. This is a guide. Okay. I am certain. So they respond to words like certain, sure, facts, numbers, measurements. Okay. The fact is, okay, firstly, because then they love to have that method. Okay. They're very methodical. I have checked. So it's about making sure you let them know that, you've got that credibility and you're prepared. What happens is, so you're telling them what's about to happen because they love to know what's going to happen. They don't like ambiguity that absolutely makes them anxious. You can find more resources at, these are the links to, okay? And then you've got other tips like provide them with accurate information, focus on the facts, take it step by step. They love procedures, give them time, be discreet, talk clearly and concisely, brief, summarize, and ask. Okay, it's not just like, okay, so we've talked about this. It's not just enough. It's not just enough to summarize. You just then say, so do you have other questions? Be ready with supporting documents and references to support your idea. Be ready to speak numbers, logistics, and technical terms. Credibility is paramount to them, so you must have it. So they wouldn't want to speak to somebody whose credibility is at question, right? So if, for example, this person has heard that this other person cannot be trusted, or they don't really know what they're doing, or they've just been around their job for about 6 months, then it's not going to be accepted really well. I mean, the negotiation is not going to go so well. They need specific instructions and tell them what to expect next, and avoid many changes. So you better be very clear about what you can offer. You cannot overpromise and underdeliver with these people. Answer the questions and consult if need be. Use consensus to support information. Okay, now let's go to mine. Sense of control. Okay, what you may hear from me. Okay, what options do I have? Is this it? Can I do this myself? Do I need to? I'm all right, thanks. Just browsing. How flexible is what else? Okay, so that's autonomy. They need to be given flexibility, have more options to choose from, like to decide on their own. I love DIY because we hate relying on others. Favorable responses would be, here are some options you can choose from. Would you prefer? Please choose. These are different ways you can. You can either do this or that. You can certainly do this by yourself. This is so easy to do yourself. That is if you choose to do it or comfortable to do it. Other tips, provide them with options, give them room to decide for themselves, let them have the last say. Do not rush them, make them feel capable and in control, assure them of independence and reliability. Be flexible. Okay, so that's me. Glad to meet you, Rena. Relatedness. Oh, I think fairness. Yes. Okay. Relatedness. How safe do we feel with others? Okay. So these are the people that are into that. So they would say, oh, who else is here? I prefer to see. How are you? You look great today. So they love to give compliments. Okay. So glad to see you. They sound so pleasant and warm and accommodating. I don't mind waiting for, because they want to see the person that they want to see. Okay. I need to do this for. It's always like they're there to do something for someone else. What do you think? So they love to get consensus of others. Yes. Sure. So they're kind of a bit like, not really a pushover, but they could be. But they want to make you feel welcome, and they want to make you feel that they're listening to you, because they love to have positive relationships with people. They love to feel welcome and make others feel welcome. They prefer to see the same people they trust. They feel more secure dealing with the people they are familiar with. They don't mind getting personal, so you can ask them about what happened to them over the weekend, and some of them give you a lot of information as well about themselves, unsolicited. They love to talk about their loved ones. They don't mind sharing information about themselves and their day. Actually, this is my number 2. Favorable responses. Love to see you again. You must be here to see. The same process. This is okay, so you kind of say the same process because you go, oh, okay, I don't have to think much about it. They love familiarity. You must be familiar with, not much has changed. This will be good for, how are you? A lot of people prefer to. So by saying things like how others have decided on something, it actually helps them make decisions. Okay? And others found this. Other tips, be warm and welcoming, make conversations light and friendly, establish a great rapport with them, be open and honest. They love to know what others think, so you have to give them the opportunity to ask around, explain how others will benefit from their decisions, okay, because they're always thinking of other people. Be respectful and polite, as they can be overly friendly and intrusive. Okay, some of them have a hard time saying no, so ensure you confirm and follow up on agreements. Find a common ground because they love to connect. Okay, now yours, Rena, listen to yours. Okay, you're going to tell me yes or no at the end of this, okay? If this is really indeed you might change your mind. Okay, you may have a tendency to say, that's not fair, is it? That's not right. Where does it say that? What's in it for me? How does that help? What's the use of this? Have you considered? I haven't been told about this. Why wasn't I told about this? Were you told about this? Okay. they're always about common courtesy, and it wouldn't be fair if you are deprived of information. So they question that a lot and they challenge it. Other tips, they're cautious. They do not like special attention because fairness is there. They scrutinize rules and policies. They adapt a gray mentality. So it's a black and white, and they're trying to adapt to what's in the middle because they're trying to go, okay, we got to have a balanced approach here. They don't mind compromising for as long as it's right for everybody. They need to understand why decisions were made, because then if there's injustice, and some elements, important elements that may affect others may not have been considered, then they're trying to think of those things. So how you're going to speak to, say, if I spoke to you, Rena, I must use words like, to be fair, we have considered all. This policy was developed because it is just but right to, we need to justify, we have looked at all sides. This was carefully studied. What are your views on this? Okay. So because you have to have the opportunity to speak up, otherwise you won't feel engaged at all. That's just but fair. How does this sound to you? So you're being asked about how you feel. Be patient to listen to their opinions. Take a holistic approach. Not tunnel vision, holistic. Okay, investigate all sides. Guide them to see the bigger picture. Consult others if you have to, because then they might have this feeling that they might not know about everyone's concerns. But when you say that you have taken time to consult with other people, they will have that assurance that fairness has happened, because people's opinions are being considered. Respectfully explain the policies and who benefits from them. All right. So are you the F, fairness type, Rena? So would that really be you after having said I'm more yeah, but you see, certainty and fairness, they're quite linked. So it is very possible that you're linked, what makes it different is that the ones who put certainty a lot wouldn't care whether it's fair or not, for as long as they just know the information, and when they make decisions, they don't really give a lot of value in terms of how it impacts others. They just want to be sure about what they're deciding on. Yeah, it's very interesting. Absolutely. Now, can you now see how this can work in a negotiation meeting? Like, say, for example, you have two people and one person, and you've got to work out lunch rosters for them. And you speak to somebody whose value is about on a C, right? Like you yourself. And then all of a sudden your boss just tells you, okay, there's two of you having lunch. I'll put you at a 1:30 in the afternoon. But you were normally taking the 12:30 and you're just being told, okay, I'll just put you on 1:30. Now, you're not given any opportunity to say or ask why. Do you think you're actually going to embrace that statement? Well, absolutely not. But if you if that person says, okay, we have two things, 12:30 and 1:30, okay? And I think that it is but right that you get the 1:30 schedule because, and you're being explained why, and then you're being asked, what do you think? Then that would become more positive, because then you'll say, okay, I'm being given all the details. So yes, I will respond to this negotiation. Whereas there's just that cutoff, it's not going to work. So you use that to kind of understand what will trigger a negative emotion and avoid that when you have that meeting. And you also use that knowledge to be able to create that bond with that person even before the meeting occurs, to plan what you say, to make them understand that the outcome that you want to get will benefit them by and you link it to their language, to link it to what speaks to them, to what's close to their hearts, not just about business, because people, no matter what you say, business is business, yep, but people have a tendency to subconsciously pick the best option that speaks to their values, and that would be the scarf. So I hope you like it. Rina, was it helpful for you? I hope it is. And, there's more. This is just one model. There's so many that we can learn. Yes, thank you very much. Now, on my next virtual class, possibly later this afternoon, I will talk about the key principles of negotiation. So what are the things, what are the elements that somebody would have to remember and respect and apply when you are going through the actual negotiations? Okay, so this one is just a tool that you can apply in all different things. Even when you're motivating your staff, you can use the scarf. You start looking at your team, think, what is S? Who is an S here? Who is a C? Who is an A? Who's an R? And who's an F? And then start, motivating them using what they really value, because you can't motivate a person if they don't feel that's important or it speaks to them, right? So on the next class, it's about the principles of negotiation. So, okay, what do you need to prepare? And it's a bullet point exercise. It's actually also on your assessment workbook. So I will video that if you can't attend later on, but I will explain as to how negotiation meetings are prepared and planned, what to bear in mind when you're going through a meeting, and also why these things are important. Okay, and how it gives you the best chances of getting the outcome you want to achieve in every negotiations. Okay, so thank you. And I'll see you next time. But yeah, I'll still be on Zoom chats, and I'll be on email and Zoom chats today. Thanks, Rina. Do you have questions for me, though? You're welcome. Absolutely enjoy spending time with you guys, and I appreciate you taking time out. I know you're busy and it's a Friday as well. So, yep, thank you so much. If you have more questions, Rina, just shoot me an email or go on Zoom chats. Bye, everybody. Till the next time.